Hello, good listener. Welcome inside a brand new edition of the Tall Can Audio podcast. Happy Friday. Happy Halloween. Happy Toronto Blue Jays Game 6. The Blue Jays on the verge of something. Man, what a day. For the end of October, about as excited as you can be about sports. I don't even know, I don't care, as you're listening to this, what your favorite NHL team is. They're not doing anything of even a little bit of interest on October 31st. It's 10 games in. Maybe they're good. Maybe they're bad. There's 70 games to go. The PWHL hasn't started yet. The NFL is still kind of in early mode. I guess if you're a CFL fan, there's reason to be excited. The CFL, well, if you're a CFL fan outside of the nation's capital, there's reason to be excited. Our excitement, our enthusiasm has been beaten out of us over the course of several years. The beatings will continue until morale improves, I believe, is the expression. This is going to be fun today. We're talking to Andi Petrillo, who, if you've ever watched a major sporting event in this country, you've seen, whether it's on the NHL, whether it's currently on Amazon Prime, it's One Soccer, TSN, Leafs Lunch. Andi has done it all. And she's got a book out. It's called Just Call Me Andi. And I've finished it. It sort of documents her journey as a kid up through school, like all of these books do a little bit, right? Here's some of my background. But more than anything else, it kind of weaves its way through this challenge, I think challenge is the right word, of being a bit of a trailblazer on the women's side of sports broadcasting. And I feel a little shitty even framing it as on the women's side, because sports broadcasters are sports broadcasters, and the women doing the job and the ones doing it well don't really have any interest in being differentiated. But there has been a difference. It is a different road. It is a tougher road. And so Andi's book is sort of equal parts her journey, the challenges she's run into, the successes she's had, the events that she's covered, stories about notable athletes and other sports media personalities. It walks this really fine line between sort of a memoir, an advice book for women in business or in sports broadcasting, for people like me who are just nerds for the industry, and just stories about sports. It's a tough line to walk, to try and do all these things, to be a little motivational, to be a little storytelling, to be a bit of a memoir, to do all these things at once. And honestly, it was a really fun read. I blew through it pretty quickly. So we're going to talk to Andi here in just a second. Of course, the Blue Jays come home from Los Angeles after taking 2 of 3 out in the City of Angels. And honestly, it's a strange vibe. You certainly knew the Jays were going into the World Series as an underdog. And look, in Game 6, they're going to face Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and you're an underdog in that game. But you got 2 chances to win this thing. And look, the Dodgers are no joke. They're going to push back. It wouldn't shock me at all if this goes 7. Wouldn't shock me at all if the Dodgers still win it. Wouldn't shock me at all if the Jays win it in 6 or in 7. This has been one of those series. And the city's excited, the country's excited, the province is excited. I can't wait. And on our Monday morning show, I'm excited because we can kind of get back on turn, right? We can go back to our normal schedule. Baseball happens so fast, and it's every night. And when you are trying to do a show like this, you're like, I'm not going to release an episode of the show 3 hours before a ball game and have it be immediately out of date. And I've talked about this. So I'm excited to get back on turn. It's one thing in the summer when games happen every night for 6 months and you just have to deal with it. You do what you got to do. In the World Series, it matters. You need to be topical. You need to be on top of things. You need to be in the moment. And so that has impacted our recording schedule and our release schedule. We can get back on turn one way or another. Come Monday morning, there will be major baseball news, and we will talk all about it here on the next episode of Tall Can Audio. As I mentioned, it is Halloween, and I'm having something, I guess it's seasonal. It's certainly seasonal. This is a pumpkin spice espresso porter from Whitewater Brewing. And I'm cheating a little bit because I had this a couple of weeks ago on the podcast. I don't remember exactly when. It doesn't matter. And pumpkin spice is more of a fall thing than a Halloween, but it says pumpkin. So I'm using it. I'm being festive here on Halloween. If you missed it earlier this week, on Tuesday, we dropped a great new episode with Mark Hebscher. He also has a book out, and we've talked about this a little here over the last few days. A lot of people release their book around this time of year because it's the holiday season, and books make great stocking stuffers. And so, yeah, here in this 2-week span, we've got 4 different books to talk about. Last Friday, James Duthie was on the show in studio to talk about his new book, Certified Beauties. And then on Tuesday, Mark Hebscher, who everybody remembers from Sportsline, Sportsnet, CHTV down in Hamilton. He's been a talk radio in Toronto through the 80s and 90s. Had some run-ins. Certainly with the Leafs organization over the years. Times he was less welcome than other times at Maple Leaf Gardens. Almost killed, well, not killed, but would have been responsible for killing both Doug Gilmour and Doug Flutie. I can think of no better way to become a villain in the city of Toronto than killing their 2 favorite Dougs. So that is in the book Madness, The Rise and Ruin of Sports Media. We dropped that on Tuesday afternoon. Today we're talking to Andi about her book, Just Call Me Andi. And next Thursday, well, the conversation's Thursday. The show will probably drop Friday morning. Oren Weisfeld, we're going to talk about his book on the golden era of Canadian basketball, how Canada finally arrived on the scene. All these NBA players for so long, and yet Canada was a bit of a joke on the international scene. No longer. And Oren's got a great new book out on that, and we'll talk to him next week. So we've got a little bit of a TCA book club going here at the moment. 2 weeks, 4 books. It's just the way the schedule rolls out sometimes. Anyway, with all of that out of the way, let's get right into it. We want to talk to Andi Petrillo about her book, Just Call Me Andi. We're going to do that right now on the Tall Can Audio Podcast. My guest today is somebody who, if you've ever watched a major sporting event featuring Team Canada of any sport, you have seen this person. And now she's got a new book out called Just Call Me Andi. Andi Petrillo is here. How are you today, Andi?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
I'm really excited to talk to you. This is going to be great. And honestly, the timing couldn't be better because just yesterday, as you and I are talking, we got some huge news out of the CBC as we hit 100 days from the Olympics. We've had the broadcast teams unveiled, and I just finished the book, so there is some serious talk, especially early on, about your pride in both being Canadian and being Italian. On top of broadcasting an Olympics, this is in Milan Cortina. This has to be extra special for you.
It really is. I really hope that the Italians can show, the world what they can do. And that's also what I love about the Olympics is that it always ends up becoming a postcard for the host nation as well. And I know I'm biased, but I do think Italy obviously is absolutely lovely and beautiful. And it's a challenge for them. This is the most spread out geographically Olympics that we've ever had. So side note, and you probably would have read this in my book as well, which is really sad and kind of disappointing, is once again, our main Olympic shows will be done from studio in Toronto. So I will not be there. I've had the pleasure of being, I've visited Milan many times, but hence that's how this, the broadcasting world is going.
Sure.
But it's still our job to elevate and promote the stories of the Canadian athletes for sure, the international athletes, but it's also a lovely way to showcase a beautiful country who's going to be welcoming the world. That's what the Olympics does, right? It's about welcoming the world, and I always get excited every 2 years for this.
Well, as much as being a nerd for sports, I'm kind of a nerd for sports media, and one of the cool things about the Olympics is seeing the crossover, like who's getting brought in from other networks to call things that we don't always see. And one of the cool things that was part of the CBC announcement was obviously the men's and women's hockey broadcast teams. And we're seeing, Cheryl Pounder with Kevin Bieksa and Elliot Friedman and James Duthie, like crossover between the two major. Now, you only see that at the Olympics. It's kind of neat.
It is. And, credit to CBC. We're kind of, I guess, Switzerland in that sense. We are a sports network. We have sports shows every weekend, which I host, but we're not like 24/7 the way TSN and Sportsnet are. So they're a little bit in competition with each other. And I guess, CBC, we always manage to make the peace and have everyone come together and join forces to put great programming out there for Canadians. That's what matters, because the other thing that the CBC recognizes is that, because we live in a world of social media, digital streaming, you name it, where everything is accessible 24/7, you have to meet those needs of viewers. And there's only so many bodies you have within your own network, so you have to make alliances and you have to join forces and you have to all play in the sandbox nicely. And here's the thing, at the end of the day, we all love each other.
Sure.
I'm friends with everybody at Sportsnet and TSN and you name it, but it's always the people high above who sit in the ivory towers who always create the conflict. But the actual on-air people, producers, directors, we are all friends. We all love each other. So we're really all excited to be working together.
One of the big takeaways, again, from that announcement, and you talked about this gentleman in your book, Just Call Me Andi, which is available now, was the absence of the name Scott Russell. And look, I know I knew that he finished up at the last games, which was just the summer games in Paris, and it was well done to give him his farewell and all these things. But that guy has been doing Olympic coverage in one way or another since I was a kid, for as long as I can remember. And despite the fact that I knew coming out of Paris that was it for Scott and he was finished, somehow, I don't know if it had slipped my mind or there was something jarring about reading these names that were going to be doing the coverage and not seeing his there. I'm curious, you've had the chance to work with Scott on a bunch of different Olympics. What was it that he would bring to these games that you've now maybe learned from him or picked up from him? What are, some things that you remember about his coverage of the Olympic Games?
I mean, I think I put it in words the best I could in my book, because I definitely highlight Scott Russell and what he's meant not just to me, but to Canadian sport in this country. He took it to heart. Whenever he talked about an athlete, he knew that he was speaking to them and to their friends and to their family and to all the coaches and the village that helped make them the athlete that they are. And he took that very seriously. And he truly loves, we call it amateur sport. There's no real such thing as amateur sport anymore. But that is what he truly had a passion for. And that is what he taught me. Hometowns matter. We're an athlete. Like I would say, in the beginning, I'd be like, oh, here's an athlete, from Quebec, or here's an athlete from Alberta.
Sure.
And he's like, no, like where's their hometown? And oftentimes certain sports, it matters even what club they belong to, like gymnastics or figure skating, because the athletes at that club, they too feel a sense of pride when you mention that name on TV, because they were, part of that journey of the athlete who's now competing on the greatest stage. So he just brought he brought the human element all the time. It wasn't just stats. It wasn't just analytics or numbers. And it wasn't also just about top 3 finishes either. We all love winners and we all have people going home with medals. But if an athlete finished like 7th, right? But that happened to be a personal best.
Right.
It happened to be a PB. He knew that. And he would say, this is a big deal for this athlete. And he always reminded me of that. He's like, put it in the athlete's context. Like, don't just look at it as in, oh, Canada missed the podium. He's like, what did that athlete achieve? What's going on with that athlete? What was the buildup into the Olympics? There's a story behind the performance. And he taught me that. And I've always taken that to heart.
It's one of these things, right, where for so many of these sports, whether it be the summer or the winter games, as Canadians, we're not experts in it, but once somebody puts on that maple leaf, that's my guy, that's my girl. Like, I'm following this and I care a lot right now. And yet, I don't know a good dive from a bad dive, but once every 4 years, I'm an expert. Like, oh, they blew it right over it. But you're so right that, like, in the sports that we watch more often, if somebody comes out on your favorite hockey team or your favorite baseball team and has one bad night, it was one of 82, and they're going to care. This has to get done today, and there is no tomorrow. You've trained 4 years to get to this moment, and yeah, maybe you didn't land on the podium, but your personal best has always been 12th place, and you got to 5th. That's an incredible outcome. And we have a hard time, I think, as people, more attuned to pro sports, putting that in the proper context. It's really important what you say about being able to frame that properly.
Well, and you have to, Olympians they're a special breed, and they are mentally tougher than I have, could have ever imagined. And I don't want to make this whole the amateur athlete versus the pro athlete, because I don't necessarily think that's fair. But there really is a different mentality and approach to the sport, to life, because as devastating as it is for, Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers to have gone to back-to-back Stanley Cups and not win it, they get to go right back at it the next year. Like Connor McDavid gets to say, I'm going to sign a 2-year deal. That's your window.
Sure.
Olympians don't get to do that because they're not even guaranteed they're making the Olympics the next cycle. And it is just the amount of pressure and preparation for a moment, not a season, a moment. And I remember speaking to Alex Despatie. He was my co-host during the 2018 Pyeongchang's, former diver. Funny that you would mention diving.
Yeah, seriously.
He won Olympic silver. He's been a world champion, you name it. He was 13 years old when he represented Canada at the Commonwealth Games. I mean, the guy is mentally tough. And I think it was his final Olympics where he finished 4th. And I said to him, it's the wooden medal, right? That's what we call it. You just missed the podium. And he said to me, he looked at me, he goes, Andi, I looked at that result and said, I'm the 4th best diver in the world. Yeah. And when he said it like that, and I went, how many billions of people are on this planet? You are the 4th best diver in the world. And I went, you're right, homie. That is how you approach it. And I'm not saying it's easy for those athletes to get there, but they work hard on their mental toughness. And it was a really nice reminder to me to be again, it's not as simple as X and O stats, 1, 2, 3. There is so much behind it where I'm yeah, dude, you're the 4th. At that moment, you're the 4th best in the world. And that's pretty freaking cool. So yeah, you just got to and again, I guess that's my job as an Olympic host too, to bring those types of stories and that type of storytelling and that type of perspective to the audience. And I hope I can do that.
One of the cool things, about the book, which is called Just Call Me Andi, and it's available now, is that you kind of go on a bit of a journey with you and you get told right away how this is going to be framed. And I want to talk about the way it's constructed, but within the first chapter or two, we learn that someone in your family heritage has had poop in their shoes. We understand we're going to hear some things in this book, right? And it's tremendous in that regard. But it's 2 or 3 books in one. It's your journey, right? It's your commentary on the media industry. It's advice to women and other young sportscasters who might be coming up. It's the challenges you faced as being a woman trying to push through in that industry. I'm sort of curious, as you're putting it together, how you find that balance, how to walk that tightrope of, I'd like to tell some stories on how I got where I am and what I've, the successes I've had and the levels I've reached, the things I've got to cover. I'd like to be able to give some advice. I'd like to be able to comment on where we're at right now with the idea of women covering professional sports. How do you find that balance when you sit down to do something like this?
Oh man, it's my first book, and I guess in some ways my naivete was a blessing because there wasn't a lot of pressure on me to write a book a certain way because I had just never done it before, and I'm this is what's coming to my brain, and this is how I feel this book needs to be told. And how I compartmentalized it was the beginning part is a little bit more about me and my family. I feel people, they want to get to know who you are. And I think obviously in this world of social media where you post stuff more so than you ever did before. And also the fact that I hosted radio for 5 years. And I think radio, you really let a lot more people in than you do when you're hosting a very regimented type of TV show. So I think people do know me, but I wanted to just really kind of let them in a little bit more. This is a little bit, of my family history, and hopefully it explains a little bit of why I am who I am. And then when I start to get into my journey in the industry, it's as linear as it can be, but the intention wasn't to be linear, right? This is where I was born, this is where I went to school, this is what I did, and then kind of along the way, I chose topics based on questions I would get asked a lot when I would do speaking engagements. So, because there's a lot that's still in my brain, but I thought to myself, what do I think will resonate the most with people? And I said, okay, what questions get asked of me a lot when I'm in face to face with people? And then when I would think of a topic and be like, I think this is really important, I would test it out with my contemporaries, like with other people in the industry. Like I said, we're all friends, all the networks. So we'd go golfing or we'd go for lunch and I'd run it by them. I would bring up a topic and say, hey, what do you think about this, right? And I'm, and obviously, like some of my chapters are just about, like, I have a chapter dedicated to clothing.
Yeah.
And that might shock a lot of people about how clothing and what to wear on air for women can cause a ton of stress. But I would bring it up and then suddenly they would go, oh my goodness, let me tell you a story of what happened to me one time when I wore this or I wore that or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'm on the right path. This is definitely a topic I need to continue exploring. So that's how I chose things, right? What were people, young aspiring journalists, asking me the most about? What pearls of wisdom can I share based on that experience? And also my current sportscasters, what did they feel was a story that resonated with them? And I wanted to bring that to light. So that's how those topics came about.
One of the things, and I don't know when you sat down to do this, whether or not you would have had a target audience necessarily, but, I'm sitting here, I'm a 40-year-old guy. This is not a book that I would say to other men, oh, avoid that. That's just for women. It's only advice for young sport. Like, this is an enjoyable read. It's funny. It's got some insights. There's lots of talk about sports, but there are some things that open your eyes a little bit. And the clothing chapter, like you said, like, it doesn't really apply. I'm sitting here right now in a pair of blue jeans and my Ottawa Charge hoodie. Like, this is what I do from day to day. At the best of times, I'm not a fashionable guy. And so reading about
Ottawa Charge, that's not a bad hoodie.
Well, I might ask you about that. Ottawa fans are feeling a little burned about the off season we had, but we could talk about that later. But the way it's framed is, like, there are some challenges here, and there are some men that are shitty towards women and in this industry, and you're going to have to go through some things if you're a young woman. And but it's not off-putting to men. Like, it's not a ball-busting feminist, like, something that would push men away. As you're writing this, is that something you're aware of, or is it, I don't really care. Like, right in the bio of your Twitter, it says, I talk about sports with conviction, and that bugs some people. Like, it sort of feels like you're kind of like, I don't care if it's off-putting to some men or it's whatever. This is what I think. How conscious are you of the audience when you write the book?
I am a bit. Like, if you notice, there are some stories I share where, people were not very kind or made requests that were pretty obvious. They made those requests because I'm a woman, and I don't name them. I don't call them out. I didn't want it to be about, finger pointing in that sense where I name names. If anything, the people I name are those who, are allies and have been wonderful and who I call friends to this day. So there's a bit of me that, of course, I don't care to offend. I'm sharing the story. But on the other hand, a lot of men have been my allies. A lot of men have stood side by side with me in my pursuit of feeling like, welcomed. And this is also my industry too. And I know a lot of women don't get that or haven't gotten that. And I just think that is so sad. But I've been very fortunate and blessed. So yeah, I'm not on this crusade to say, you man, you are bad. Because I think some men too, are also subconscious. Like, they don't realize, again, some of the things that I share where, I'm in arenas on the road or anywhere, and the, male security guards would always ask me for my credentials,
right?
Not the male reporters around me. Now, do I think those men, are trying to put me down? Do I think they hate women? Of course not, but they don't even realize it sometimes in their own head. And that's why I try to highlight this in the book. Why is it that you look at a group of people in a sports arena of some kind, you see the woman and you automatically assume that she's the one who doesn't belong.
Right.
So I want people to pause. I want men to pause and ask themselves why they think that and why they feel that way. So that's more of, because I don't believe it's necessarily always coming from a place of malice. I think a lot of times it comes from a place of years and years of, subconscious training of men know sports, women don't. Therefore, man in sports arena belongs, women doesn't, right? So I'm trying to break that down, and I'm trying to do so in a very conversational, inviting, welcoming, cultivating way. Because I also find finger pointing just gets people's back up, turns them
100%.
off, and then they'll walk away. Like, why would you ever want to do that? I want more people to work together, truly be a team. So in one way, of course, I don't care if I offend people, but in another way, I truly believe men and women, especially in my experience in this industry too, I have had wonderful relationships with men helping me in my career.
Some people deserve to be pointed at and brought, like anyone who thinks a hot tub belonged on Hockey Night in Canada. It's okay to call that person out. One of the things that really struck me, and maybe I just hadn't given it enough thought in the past, was there's a point in the book where you mention, and you'll correct me if I'm framing this wrong, but the idea of almost guilt of leaving a job. Like maybe you won't be there now for somebody else, a young woman who might, or a young girl who might, I don't know, watch Leafs lunch or whatever else it might have been in your stops along the way. And when you were there, they could look at that and go, oh, look, there's a spot I can get there. Like the old, if you can see it, you can be it line. And you said there were moments that almost, I don't know if gave you pause. Again, you'll correct me if I'm framing this wrong, but that it's on your mind when you move on from a position that I don't know if that's going to be filled by a woman, and, you know, maybe that's going to be, you know, a wrinkle or a hill for somebody else to have to cross, that they won't see me there. Like, how prominent is that when you move along?
Yeah, it's very valid, because I think for many women, there's still the belief that you're a token hire. And even though you are the best qualified for the job, you're the right person for the job, you earned that job based on merit. Because of years, again, of token hiring, in the back of your head, you start to doubt and go, well, crap, is that what I was? So that if I leave, the tokenism's done.
Right.
Right? Like, or did I actually make waves? Did I actually pay the path? So there's always that fear. Like, so for example, like the radio with Leafs Lunch, I became the first woman in Canada to have a daily sports radio show. And I'll always be forever grateful. Like Jeff McDonald, when I said to him, like, why are you hiring me? He's like, you're the best for the job. He didn't say, oh, because, you know, I want to get a female audience. And so I really want to.
I don't know if it's the same job, Andi, but there was a line again that stuck with me. There's a bunch of little anecdotes and paragraphs or sentences that stick with me after reading this thing. And one of them, you asked one of your bosses, and maybe this isn't the same one, why are you taking a risk on someone like me? And he goes, I'm not taking a risk on someone like you. I'm hiring the right person for this job.
Yeah. And that's him. That was Jeff who said that to me. And I mean, obviously the benefits is that, you know, they ended up getting more female listeners. I also had way more men even reaching out to me saying, my daughter or my granddaughter or my niece is suddenly listening, like is telling me, hey, Dad, turn on Leafs Lunch, right? I want to listen to the hockey stories for the next 2 hours. Andy's hosting and stuff like that. So that's the benefit of it. But J-Mac fully hired me because he thought I was the best for the job. And that's always great. But again, just years of the whole tokenism. Because another thing that really kind of ticks me off is every frickin' International Women's Day, everyone's like, this entire broadcast is all female. Oh, okay. So for one frickin' day, like that's it, one day? Like, stop making it a token day and make it a proper stepping stone, right? Like moving forward. So you see how in the back of your head, that whole like tokenism is just there, won't go away. So with that comes a fear of, okay, well, if I now leave this position, am I now closing the door for other women? Because I was the experiment, and when I leave, the experiment's now over.
Right.
So you always live a little bit with that kind of fear, but you have to take a leap. I did. I had to leave Leafs Lunch. It was time to move on, and it's all good. Because there are still women working in the radio industry, and there are more and more women creating sports podcasts. So at some point you have to trust the process, and I have to trust that I wasn't just an experiment. And even if I was, I hope the experiment worked.
Sure.
And more women now are getting into this side of the industry.
Which reminds me, I have a friend who's going to kill me if I don't get this in. Her name is Michaela Schreider, and she hosts She's Got Game across the TSN radio network every week. And she asked me when she heard you were coming on the show to deliver a message, and that message is very simple. I love you. So that
Thank you.
She'd kill me if I hadn't passed that on. So I've done my job. I have.
Yes.
She's very good at her job as well, and cites you as somebody she looked up to. One of the people that I first remember on the women's side doing sports like this, and I probably shouldn't have framed it that way, but it's legit, is someone named Patricia Bull, who was on The Score 100 years ago. And now she does CTV News here in Ottawa. And she was in a year or so ago. And I asked her what I'm going to ask you. And she sort of wanted to defer the question because she has moved out of the sports realm and is now doing news. But she told some stories then about what it was like in the very early days, especially around the NHL, which was kind of always an old boys club, especially in the 90s and whatever else, that she had some allies as well, but that there were a lot of people who would kind of look down their nose at her when she was first getting started. And I asked her, where are we now? And in terms of, we were at a point where there was no women covering men's professional sports. And then there was a first at some point. And then it grew a little bit. And now I think we're at a point where women are still the minority, but it's not uncommon anymore. We are getting more and more used to seeing women cover men's professional sports. How close to, I don't know if perfect is ever going to be achievable, but are we in a good place? Do we still have a long way to go? Like, based on where you are now in your career, based on, and compared to when you started, how far have we come? And what is, the condition for women working in the industry right now?
It's definitely evolved. And to your point, it's funny, if you go into the Toronto Maple Leafs practice facility, in the media booth, they have a big photo that was taken years ago. And in fact, I think it would have been my first year covering the team in 2006. And it's an aerial shot of a player. I can't remember who the player is now being interviewed. And there's like this big scrum around him. And there's me, the one, bleached blonde hair, red coat, can't miss me. And there I am in a sea of men. I think there was one other woman kind of like tucked off to the side. She worked in radio. But there I was, right? Like this thing that really stood out. And it's
Sure.
every time I go to Leafs practice, like all the media members who were even part of that photo, we all laugh because they're like, you stuck out like a sore thumb. And that was in the early 2000s. There were women who came before me, and bless those trailblazers. But that was early 2000s. And there were times like bigger markets, I would say there were other women who were working in media, but smaller markets, my goodness, I remember when we went to Nashville for a game. I walked into that room, the room went silent because they were just like, there is a woman in here. And it was like like an alien walked in or something. It was like so bizarre. So I had moments where, oftentimes I was the only woman in the room. I was the only woman conducting interviews. I was the only woman, talking about certain sports on TV, like on a daily type of analytical basis too, right? Like offering up my opinion. And I've seen it grow. Now I walk into, hockey rooms and there are so many other women there. And where I think the progression also needs to happen, and it's a part that I even share in the book, and every position in this industry is valuable and important. But I do feel like in the beginning, more women were pushed right into the reporter role. Now where the evolution is more women are getting into the host role. The host, they are the driver of the show. So you're seeing more women hosting big events, definitely in the States, still have a lot more work to do in Canada. Like the day I see a woman, hosting hockey night in Canada, Then I'll be like, okay, we made it, right? Because they have women hosting big NFL and NBA shows in the States. We don't have that yet in Canada. So that to me is the next step. We're also starting to see more women get into the director role, the producer role, executive producer. So those behind the scenes, like where you have decision-making power. So it's slowly starting to happen. And that's where you really see the progression. Is that it also depends on what position women are in. And again, in the States, more women are in the analyst role, right? Like it's not just the face that's directing traffic, be it again, like a host or a reporter role. It's like a proper analyst. So I see more of that movement in the States. We gotta, start pushing a little bit more here in Canada, which is why I was so happy when, Cheryl Pounder is killing. Cassie Campbell-Pascal for a long time was doing that and was really paving the way for people. Now you're seeing Cheryl Pounder, doing that as well. Jen Botterill is doing it, which is so great. And I love it. I absolutely love it. But that to me is where I start to see the progress, is when you start to put women in positions where their opinions matter, so their voice is heard, and then even behind the scenes where they start to make those decisions, be them producer or executive producer.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right? Because the host certainly has to know the sport and is certainly valuable, but putting them on the panel side of it also shows that they have the deep expertise. The one that stands out to me right now, as we're all watching the Blue Jays in the World Series, is Madison Chipman on Sportsnet, and we're getting 8-9 million Canadians every night watching the Blue Jays, and Jamie Campbell is throwing to her. Why did this pitch work? Why did you not run on that situation? And obviously there is value there from her playing days, and she understands what's happening and the pressure these athletes are under. And yeah, the more places that you can plug somebody in and show that they know what they're doing and they can handle this and they're talented at this, it can only push us forward, right?
Well, yeah, because again, in certain roles, you can just be seen as the pretty face.
Sure.
And I'm not saying there isn't, there's nothing wrong. I mean, TV's a visual medium at the end of the day, whatever. But I felt like that's where women got jammed. Oh, you pretty face? Okay, go be the reporter. Mm-hmm. Oh, pretty face? Okay, go be the host. Well, now it's like, wait a second, I actually have something of value to share from an analytical point of view. Now, unfortunately, women still get attacked from the certain group of viewers more relentlessly in those positions than the men do. Yeah. But we're pushing forward. And that's where I commend a lot of executive producers for putting the women in those positions, because they are the right people for those positions, and not listening to others whose, knuckles unfortunately still drag on the ground. So, again, this, and that's what I mean. So when you start to have, and again, I'll give credit. There are executive producers out there who are men who put their foot down and say, that woman's the best person for the job, so I don't want to hear anything else about it. So I commend them as well for also just, walking to the beat of their own drum, because that's what happens when you start to have a whole other crew, like a whole other generation coming through. You just start to see this shift. So it's happening, but unfortunately there is just still a group, and maybe it'll always be that way, who will just have this belief that because they were born men, they're a God-given right to know sports, and because you were born a woman, you know more about like hair and makeup. So there, like, what a stupid way to like put people in boxes, right? But I guess that might always be a fight, but it's changing, and thanks to a lot of people in this industry who are far more open-minded.
You referenced a name there, Cheryl Pounder, and I was talking to her last night because she's going to be in Ottawa here in a couple of weeks, and she's agreed to make some time and come in studio. And I asked her, is there any story that you know about Andi that I should ask Andi about? And it turns out the one that she brought up is actually in your book. And she said to ask Andi about the time that you guys first met, and that Cheryl literally fell to her knees in front of you.
Yeah, I said, listen, I always knew you liked me, but this is ridiculous. Just get up off your knees, girl. I was so excited to be working with her because, I never take for granted what I do for a living. And I get to hang out with some of the coolest athletes who are incredible humans who represented our country with so much pride. And watching Cheryl Pounder compete and then being able to work alongside her, like I had butterflies in my stomach. And then she is just such a cool chick. And we were rehearsing for the inaugural PWHL draft, which was so huge. And like me, she's someone who's hungry all the time, and I don't apologize for that. I tell my husband, I'm hungry. Babe, I'm hungry. What do you want? I'm hungry. He's always like, why are you always hungry? Because I am. So Cheryl's the same way. She's always hungry. And after about an hour of rehearsing, I complained. I said, I'm hungry, and somebody managed to bring down some food for us. But the set, I'm used to working on it because at the CBC, I knew it was in the dark, but I knew where all the stairs were.
Sure.
So I knew how to navigate. She did not. And when I made my way up about 3 steps to go to the food, I said, hey, Cheryl, come here. I got some food for you. She came running over, missed the steps, like arms out like an eagle, and just went face down on the ground hard. So you have that moment where you're like, uh-oh. And then when she popped her head up, and she looked okay. Like everyone just burst out laughing. But she convinced us she was all okay until we started rehearsing again, and blood started trickling down her leg.
Oof.
I'm like, you sure you okay? Like, who was that? Who was that pitcher? Kurt Schilling? I mean, I don't.
Oh yeah, that's right. Pitcher. He had the bloody sock. That's right.
The bloody sock.
Yeah.
I'm like, Cheryl, what is happening right now? She's like, listen, as long as I'm not whistling through my teeth and I don't have a missing tooth, she's like, I'm good to go. So we just kept going with rehearsal, and she's just dripping blood on the side. I'm like, all right, that's a hockey player for you, folks. So she's been wonderful, and she's such a great advocate for the sport. She has so much passion for it, and I love that she's killing it on both the women's and men's side.
And that was one of the fun, to come all the way back around to that CBC announcement from yesterday was that she's going to contribute on both the men's and the women's side. Like, she has become a star really fast, right? Knowledgeable, energetic, well-spoken, like everything that goes into what you want a panelist to be. You can plunk her down to watch a Czechia women's hockey game or, Leafs Blue Jackets on a Wednesday night. She knows what's up. She knows what she's looking at. It's incredible. I don't know that I've ever seen anyone rise quite this fast and be quite so popular quite this quickly in any sport, really.
She has it. She's good. It's the it factor as well. And I mean, I'm very comfortable saying this to you because I say it to all the former athletes that I work with. And I always say, many of you believe that because you played, the transition into TV is going to be easy. Mm-hmm. But remember, you were an athlete, not a broadcaster, and it's not that easy. And a lot of athletes, and majority of them have been men, they're the ones who have been given the most opportunity. Yep. Not all, like the majority of them have not panned out.
Well, and I know you know what you're talking about. You did this your whole life. But you're not that interesting to listen to, or you're not that well spoken to, or you're not communicating well, or something, right? Like, I know your stuff, but you're not good at this part of it.
And that's the difference. Playing and broadcasting are still two different things. Like, to me, like Cheryl has nailed it. Ray Ferraro has nailed it. Yes. Like even Kevin Bieksa nailed it, right? Like Cassie Campbell also brought it. And it's like, it's not that easy. And when you start to think of the amount of players who have played, obviously I'm just talking about hockey right now. Yep. I can go there even with soccer. My goodness. But like when you start to look at the amount of players who have played, it's like at a 99% click that they don't have what it takes to be a broadcaster. Mm-hmm. It is a very special person who can deliver their knowledge, to your point, in a very entertaining way. So I love that the industry is opening their eyes and their mind to having women fill those analyst roles, because why would you shut the door on the potential of having someone highly entertaining and highly knowledgeable when it's actually not that easy for players to do so? So don't just like focus on the men, see how the women can do it too. And I'm just so glad they've done that, because it's, that's what we want as viewers. At the end of the day, you want someone who's entertaining you and you want to listen, not, oh, it's the intermission. Now's the time to, take the dog for a walk or go to the bathroom or, whatever it is that you got to do. No, you're like, okay, intermission. This person always says something that, teaches me something. I'm staying. So I love that. And she's got that.
100%. I don't want to keep you too long, but I'm nerding out here. I'm having a great time asking you stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm curious, you referenced meeting Cheryl around the beginning of the PWHL, and I'm kind of curious where that first day, I believe it was New Year's Day, where we kicked off the first ever PWHL season in Toronto. I'm curious where hosting that ranks on your list of accomplishments, because you've done you've done big events, and I'm sort of curious, in Canada there's nothing bigger than hockey. Like we love the Olympics, we love the World Cup, like we love these things, but there's something about hockey, and the takeoff of the PWHL was going to be a big deal. I'm sort of curious where that ranked for you in your all-time gigs or things you got to host.
I appreciated it probably when the national anthem started for that game. And the reason being is I just went to work.
Right.
I'm like, okay, I got a game to do. It's a big game. And yes, there are incredible stories and it's quite the journey. But because I had been covering their journey for so long, literally right from when the CWHL folded to everything that went on with the PHF too, like I had been covering it so hard as a proper like sports reporter. And that when the day came, it was just another like, all right, this is how I get ready when I'm about to host a panel. Mm-hmm. And even as the panel was going on, and I had Tessa Benum with me and she's talking, and Haley Salvian and Soroya Tinker, and and then even, Billie Jean King came on. And I'll never forget, even before I started interviewing Billie Jean, She goes, I really hope this opens the door, not just for the athletes, but for women like you who are also like on the broadcasting
Sure.
side of it, both, in front, behind the camera. And so it slowly started to dawn on me. I'm like, this ain't just a regular hockey game. And, because I was just such in go mode, professional mode,
Yep.
work mode. And then the second the light show started and they were coming out for the anthems, like the goosebumps, I just went, this is not a regular game. And I started to get a little emotional. And I just thought, this is the start of something that's so remarkable. And it's also I'll never say the fight is ever over, but there's a little bit of a closure. Let's put it that way. It's not the end, but there was that day also represented closure
We
of
made
a
it.
certain kind of fight.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like we are at the summit.
Yeah.
Now there's still hard work to stay at the summit.
Sure.
But they got there. And it was like all these emotions that overcame me because up until that point, it was just go mode. And then I had a moment to just sit back and go, holy crap, right? Like this is one for the history books and this is so special. And then I allowed myself to enjoy it.
You have hosted a lot of really big soccer events, and I'll be honest, I don't know who has the rights next summer and what your role will be if you will have one, but the World Cup is going to be played at least partially in Canada. I don't know how much you can tell us or how much you know at this point about, what you'll be doing, but just as someone as passionate about soccer as you are, how big is this going to be next summer?
Oh, this is huge. And no, I don't know the plans yet. TSN, they are the rights holders. This is the final World Cup they have the rights to. And I hope it's a big show. I hope it's a massive show, not just because it's on Canadian soil too, for quite a few games, but because it's just such a spectacle of a sporting tournament. It is just like the amount of cultures that also come together. It's like, it's the same as the Olympics, but it's all cohesion for one sport. Like everyone is literally just cheering on the one sport. It brings people together. It is so lovely. I don't even know how to describe it until you actually experience it. And I think yes, Canada doesn't obviously have as many games as Mexico and the United States. But, this is, it's something that's really special. And I know we can get bogged down in all the news stories. And again, that's something else I even share in my book, where it's like, here we are all excited about the Olympics, and people over in news always find a way to say, but this is negative and that's negative. And this
the residence isn't built yet, and it's Zika virus, and it's whatever else.
Yes, it's like enough. This is why I got into this industry. Sports bring people together. It is the greatest bonding, the glue, the gel that can bring people together that I have ever seen in my life. And when you are a proper sports fan, not a hooligan or a Neanderthal, when you are a proper sports fan, you also have complete empathy for someone who's cheering on a team that loses. Why? Because our team has also lost in dramatic fashion in some way too. So there is complete elation, there is empathy, there is coming together, there is celebration, there is comforting, like everything that goes with it in these large sporting events, I think are so wonderful. And in Canada, we are blessed, by our multiculturalism. I will be wearing the maple leaf, and when Italy plays, I will be donning that flag as well. We have the beauty of being able to do that in our country. It is so wonderful. And I think it's going to be a wonderful party. And for those who can't get tickets to games, there's always the peripheral, wonderful, festivities and events that are happening that a lot of the little kiddies would love too. So, make it a positive experience, because that's what it is and it should be.
Like, I make no bones about it on this show. Like, I'm not a soccer person. It's not my game. But anybody who puts on the Maple Leaf has my attention. Like, over the last few years, it's been incredibly fun to watch the men's basketball team surge onto the scene, right? And suddenly become relevant and become a factor. The women's soccer team has been a factor for quite a while. And I can remember, like, my dad and I, neither one of us know anything about soccer, but London 2012, we're coming in on a 30-degree sunny day at the cottage from the lake to watch that women's team in the Olympic semifinals against the US. And I can remember it's 7 a.m. I think in 2021, when the women's team is playing that gold medal game in an empty stadium, I am pacing around like this is the most stressful event I've ever watched. Like, there's something about and to watch over the last several years as the men's team has sort of gotten to that, well, not quite that level, but to the Ice Teca in Edmonton and everything they went through to qualify for the last World Cup, and to now see that it's coming to Canada, I will be locked in. There's something about the World Cup and Canada being relevant that just changes everything. This is going to be a blast.
It is. And I mean, you're right. Like, soccer fans, you're going to watch anyway. But I love it that you say you're still watching, because I hope that's because the broadcasters are also sharing the stories that make you feel connected to the team. Like Alphonso Davies, I mean, we could talk about his incredible skill till the cows come home, but at the end of the day, a lot of people are cheering for him because he came to Canada as a refugee.
Yes.
Right? And he calls this place home.
Well, Andy, the one that stands out to me is being told the story, and I forget his name now, and I believe he's been replaced, but the goalkeeper, he said, my family came to this country and soccer is how I can give back to Canada. Like,
Milan
this is
Borjan.
this is what I have to give to Canada. And all of a sudden I'm like, I love that guy. Like, that's my guy. Like, it's incredible. Yeah.
He did. And those gray pants that he wore the entire time qualifying for the 2022 World Cup, I believe they are in the Hamilton Sports Hall of Fame, because when he did come to Canada, he resided in Hamilton. Mm-hmm. So they played a game in Hamilton against the United States. It was a friendly, though. I can't remember now. My goodness, all my sports are blending together. But it was a great game. Canada won. And then, they went and took his pants from him and said, we're putting these in the Hamilton Sports Hall of Fame.
But you're right. Like, I need a good broadcaster to tell me that, right? Like, to tell me that story.
Yeah.
I don't know that, right? Like,
it's great. And that's why, and that's what it's about, right? Like, it's not just soccer players. It is a group of athletes representing a country, and they all have their individual stories of how they got there. Mm-hmm. And that's how you bring everyone in. And also, again, who just doesn't like a good party? I mean, even right now, you may not be a baseball fan, but come on, the Jays are one win away from World Series. Like, go to a party Friday night, go to a local pub, just have some fun, because that's what sports does. It brings people together.
So last thing for you, and this is probably the most cliched question I'm going to ask you through the whole interview, but is there something left on the bucket list that you haven't yet covered that whether it be on the men's or the women's side or in a sport you've already worked, but is there an event or is there a sport or is there something that's still out there you're like, I really hope I get my hands on that and really sit down and work on, something like that? Is there something out there that you haven't done yet that you'd still like to?
Well, believe it or not, with the amount of time I've been covering hockey, and in particular the NHL since 2006, I've never hosted a Stanley Cup final. I've never been, whether it's been reporting or hosting, I've never done a Stanley Cup final. So I think that would, because my time at Hockey Night in Canada, when they still had the rights, Ron McLean was the big host still. And when they went on the road, I stayed back home to do the digital side of things, but I wasn't there. And even when I was with TSN, I filled in for James Duffy. So whenever they took their panel on the road, I didn't go. I was still, in the studio doing any kind of updates that they needed behind there. So, can you believe that? I've never actually done any kind of, rinkside reporting or hosting for a Stanley Cup final. Need to do that. Let's put that out there.
Well, and you've got your foot in the door now at Amazon Prime, and they are working on NHL hockey. I know Sportsnet's just re-upped, but, maybe that's the window, right? Amazon gets some Stanley Cup games, and you're the host for that. This has been so much fun for me, Andy. I appreciate you making some time. The book is terrific. As I said off the top, it's got fun. It's got motivational. I don't want to overstate it, but there's motivation in there. There is fun in there. There are stories in there. There are players and names that you recognize in your interactions with them, and trying to get Matt Sundin to warm up to you. These sorts of things along the way. It's a terrific read. It isn't. I don't know how else to say it. It isn't just for women, right? You can enjoy this. Yes. There are moments where I go, I don't worry about packing makeup because I'm only getting 3 hours of sleep between hosting my hockey gig and hosting my soccer gig the next morning. So those moments make me kind of snicker and go, yeah, men and women, very different people.
This is true.
Yeah, but it's a terrific read. It's a lot of fun. I blew through it really quickly. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you making the time to come on and do this. We will link to the book. It's called Just Call Me Andi in the show notes. Thanks so much for making the time, Andi.
I really appreciate it. This has been a great chat. And thanks, for everything that you do as well on the women's side and promoting women's sports, and keep wearing that hoodie. It's greatly appreciated.
It could be a long season for us, but I will keep representing. And maybe if you find yourself in Ottawa hosting a game, we can get you in studio and do something
Love
that way.
it.
All right. That was a lot of fun, honestly. You never know when you're having a guest on for the first time. This is the first time not only that she's been a guest on the show, first time I've ever spoken to Andi. And so you never quite know how it's going to play out. And honestly, I enjoyed that a lot. I hope you did as well. I'm being honest with you when I say I enjoyed the book, but I enjoyed that conversation a lot. And look, Andi's kind of seen a few different generations of things play out here in terms of both the evolution of women in the sports broadcasting industry here over the last 20 or 25 years, the change in the industry in terms of how we're taking down sports and the way that plays out. She's done some Olympics. We got another Olympics coming up. You did hear in that conversation, we let slip, I think Cheryl Pounder is going to be in studio. It's on the calendar. It's on her calendar. It's on my calendar. In studio. She's been on the show before remotely. But at some point here over the next few weeks, when she is in town to work on some Sens games, Cheryl Pounder will be on the show. We let that slip in the conversation with Andi. But look, it's a great read. And yeah, there is some stuff in there. There's no doubt. That's kind of funny about, hooking. For men, you hook your mic pack if you're on set to the back of your pants. And if you have to run off to the men's room for a second, you stand in front of the urinal, you do what you got to do. Things are in no danger. In Andi's book, it's different for women. They hook it on the back of your pants, you run off, you drop your drawers to sit down for a pee, and all of a sudden the mic pack's in the toilet. And you come back kind of shrugging and going, hey, sorry. And the audio engineers have seen it all before, so they're kind of like, okay, no problem. Can you just tell me, was it before or after? It was before. The water was clean. Don't worry about it. And so, it's silly things like that when you're talking about the difference between women and men in the industry. It's not a ball-busting read. It's not men are evil. It's the differences between men and women doing this job. And the resolution to that anecdote I just gave, she said half the time if she's wearing a dress instead of pants on set, she just tells the audio guy, instead of hooking that, where you'd normally hook it onto my pants, hook it to the bra strap on the back. As a guy who knows all about audio and a little bit about TV, I don't think I would have thought of that. I don't think I ever would have said to a woman, hey, can we hook the mic pack on your bra? And for her, she's, yeah, that's what we do. So it's funny things like that. There's stories about covering the Leafs and being on the private jet. There's stories about Canadian soccer. There's stories about covering the Olympics. All kinds of other NHL teams that she's worked with over the years doing national broadcasts on Hockey Night or now on Amazon. It's a really fun read. So we will link to that in the show notes at tallcanaudio.com. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. Next week, we will be back. We'll have our usual Monday show, as I mentioned off the top. We're going to be back on turn with that. A little later in the week, probably Wednesday morning, you'll hear from Steve Bunda. Friday morning, Oren Weisfeld on his book about the arrival of Team Canada on the international basketball stage. All kinds of good stuff, as always, coming up on the Tall Can Audio podcast. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you're hearing us right now. Give us a follow on social media at Tall Can Audio and let us know what you think about these episodes. That's where we're going to wrap this one up. Hope everyone has a fantastic weekend, a fantastic Friday, a fantastic Halloween, and most importantly, a fantastic Game 6, if necessary, a magical, memorable Game 7 for your Toronto Blue Jays. My name is Matt Robinson. Thanks for listening. We'll see you Monday.
That's it. I cannot work under these conditions. If anybody wants me, I'll be downstairs at McDougal's. Call the weekend guy. I don't care.